Doncaster's heritage is closely associated with the evolution of the transport industry, and the stagecoach trade of the 17th and 18th century generated much of the wealth which built this splendid Georgian town. Cutting across the southeast corner of the Peak District is the River Derwent. It rises high on the gritstone moors and it flows through one of Britain's most beautiful and spectacular landscapes. Just look at this for a backdrop. The history of industry in the area goes back millennia. Quarrying, lead mining and smelting have taken place here since prehistoric times. The Peak District was home to many industrial towns, one of which is Cromford. In 1771, an ambitious businessman called Richard Arkwright came to Cromford. What brought him here was this, the constant supply of river water. He invented a new type of spinning machine to be used in the mills to spin yarn. It was too big to be operated by hand. This so-called water frame needed power to drive it. He saw in this corner of Derbyshire the potential for water to run his machines and help make his fortune. But there was another attraction. The meagre wages in those days meant that every member of the family had to work to make ends meet, including the children. And Cromford offered the easy availability of child labour. The concept of childhood as we know it today is a relatively modern one. In the 18th century, it was not uncommon for children as young as 5 or 6 to be employed in often dangerous conditions. I've come to meet Christopher Carton to find out more.
Well, this is really where it all began. The model that Arkwright set up was to bring families into the community, use the children. Effectively, it was a contract between the parents, the mill owner, the children. Children were sent here to work from about 7 years old, 12, 13, 14-hour day, depending on the water power available. And it was considered great, because you could earn an awful lot of money out of your children.
Tell me about the conditions and what the children did and what was their general day.
The crucial thing about Arkwright's inventions, they were all machines that could be worked by children. So any function that didn't involve heavy lifting, you know, the bales of cotton would be heavy. Children couldn't manage that. But working the machines, all the machines were, if you like, child-size.
I went to work at cotton factory of Mrs. Arkwright at the age of 9. I was then a fine, strong, healthy lad and straight in every limb. I gradually became a cripple till at the age of 19 I was unable to stand at machine and cast off by those who reaped the benefit of my labour without a single penny.
I have often seen him pull up the clothes of big girls, 17 or 18 years of age, and then throw them across his knee, then flog them with his hand, in the sight of both men and boys.
And what sort of hours were these kids working?
Certainly a 12-hour day, but you see, if the water power, or if there was a breakdown, you know, some drive shaft broke somewhere, well then they would try and mend it, and people would have to stay on maybe another couple of hours, because they had to make up the work which they'd lost.
If a child is drowsy, the overlooker touches the child on the shoulder and says, "Come here." In the corner of a room there is an iron cistern filled with water. He takes the boy by the legs and dips him in the cistern and sends him back to work.
If the water's constantly flowing, which hopefully it would have been, and obviously still is today, would there have been shifts? Would groups work through the night as well?
There was a night shift. They were boys who worked at night, and considered a pretty rough lot, actually. For 20 years here, they had a night shift of young boys. There was no real protection. All sorts of people came to grief. Hands in machinery, limbs therefore lost. And you had all sorts of problems with lungs, congestion, breathing in the fibres and so on. So by our standards, unbelievable.
If the devil had a particular enemy whom he wished to unmercifully torture, the best thing for him to do would be to put his soul into the body of a factory child and keep him as a child in the factory the rest of his days.
The children of the very poorest were right at the heart of Britain's industrial revolution. And it's a sobering thought to think that child labour was only abolished in Britain in the 20th century. Their childhood bore no relation to the term of what we understand today. The Derwent Valley mill towns are a testament to the legacy of Richard Arkwright, the world's first great industrialist who developed, or some say invented, the factory system, turning Britain into the workshop of the world. It's also a monument to the many kids who laboured away to make a few very rich.